Hello, gamers. Guess what? Some more React content. Who doesn't love some good old React content where we watch Wargaming's videos that I have not watched yet together with you and give some commentary on whether how bad or good this actually is. Today we're going to be taking a look on Master Your Armor.
I'm your instructor.
Which is going to be a very interesting
you'll learn
video.
All you need to know about blocking damage and survival.
I am very curious. They've obviously transitioned away from map guides ever since Keyhand's failures with the map guides to the Tank Coach series, whatever this represents.
Its Majesty, armor. Every tank has it.
Debatable.
And it's different for all of them.
True.
All armor plates follow the same rules.
Also true.
Nominal armor is an armor plate's thickness at a perpendicular angle.
Okay.
Effective armor is armor thickness at the impact angle. At sharp angles, it will differ significantly from nominal armor.
I mean,
that's
yeah.
why the IS-7 only
Might
has
actually be an
150
interesting
millimeters of front
video
armor on paper, but in reality, it has much more.
True.
Effective armor is affected by shell normalization, which we talked about in the previous episode.
Right, AP
Quick
has the
reminder,
most.
Armor-piercing shells neutralize the armor slope best
True.
of all. APCR shells
Less
are less effective,
yes.
while heat and HE shells don't turn on impact at all. Effective armor doesn't play any role if a shell hits a tank at a
ricochet angle, auto
The
bounce.
shell will just bounce off
Yeah, exactly.
and go about its shell business. In the process, it might hit another part of the tank or even another vehicle. But
This
only
is
once.
very,
There are no double
very rare. It only ricochets once, but hitting somebody into doing damage on another person is super rare. Hitting somebody and killing somebody else is even more rare. And when team damage was still a thing, I managed to hit an enemy, which then ricocheted into my teammate and kill him. That was the best.
ricochets in the game. Ricochets heavily depend on the type of shell. If you're being hit with APCR shells, you can expose thin armor at an angle.
Yeah,
but if
that's
it's a
true.
heat shell, you'll need the sharpest angle possible.
Okay,
If
true.
your armor isn't penetrated, the shell won't go inside the tank and cause damage. That makes sense, and even if it is penetrated, it's still not over. Your vehicle will lose as many hit points as the enemy shell causes with one shot. It's important to understand that hit points are a resource that can and should be spent if it's worth it, but we'll come to that later.
Listen, they've already ruined the video for everybody. Listen, hit points for most players just means that if they get hit, they gotta pay more credits to repair their tank. Therefore, they would rather sit in the back of the map in a bush sniping for 3 centuries before they want to trade their hit points away. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Screens are armor plates
Yes.
put outside the main armor.
Yeah.
Penetrating them won't cause damage because after getting through a screen, a shell still needs to penetrate the vehicle's main hull or turret armor. External modules also often work as screens. For example, traps
Right,
and
yes.
guns can work as additional layer of protection. Each module has its own durability. That's why small caliber guns can only take out a track at the second or third attempt. Now we know how armor works.
Also to do with this wonderful thing called hardening, which is really good for medium tanks and light tanks to pretty much track their opponent together in combination, of course, with the TD Field Mod 1, which is probably the dumbest field mod in the game by how obvious it is that you should take it.
Let's talk about how to use it. It's important to note that armor is not tied to any specific vehicle type. Sometimes a medium tank can block damage better than some heavies, let alone assault tank destroyers. Staying far away and not using their armor is a crime.
True, dude, true. Preach, preach. Say it louder for the tank destroyer players in the back, dude. Preach, brother, preach. It's not because it has a TD icon and a TD color that it has to be played in a bush sniping from the back. Preach. However, I would not drive to this part of the map on steps. It's pretty garbage. Most of the time you get overrun within the first 1 minute, so questionable part there.
Regardless of vehicle type, Frontal armor is generally thicker at the top and thinner at the bottom.
That's crazy.
The turret
Wow.
and upper glacis block
That's
damage
crazy,
better
dude.
than the lower glacis.
Really?
You can and should hide it. And
No,
there
really?
are several ways to do so. Classic side scraping. This way you can hide the lower glacis and only expose your side at an angle.
You have to be careful when you rock that much with a tank like 705A, because the moment you rock backwards, you expose the bottom of your turret, which can actually be penned by a good player. If you're constantly doing this in a 705A, it's a mistake. You don't want to really do that. They cannot pen you anyways, and you should rely on that.
Players often overestimate their sides and angle the hull too much. Don't do that.
I mean,
if you have thin sides, use a sharp ricochet angle. But remember the 3 caliber rule. Note that some vehicles' fenders are easily penetrated.
yeah, that's the underside. That's where there's armor still. Like E75 also has this problem that you can pen the underside. But we would almost say belly for that. We wouldn't call it fenders, but yeah, that's something you have to watch out for.
Can sometimes make side scraping
Or getting tracked or getting penned through the track into that armor is also, of course.
tricky, especially if your opponent is a little below you.
This was very accurate.
Keep in mind that you expose your turret and part of your upper glacis when side scraping.
True.
If they're vulnerable, that's a problem.
I mean, you can't really do much
Some
about
tanks
it.
can avoid that by reverse side scraping.
I wouldn't even recommend reverse side scraping in this day and age in 2024. It's extremely hard to pull off. You need really, really good angles. And if you don't do it well, they just shoot you either through the side or they just straight up hit your engine. There's very limited tanks that can pull this off successfully. And even if you do it successfully, he can just use this repair kit and swing around the corner and still blast you. I don't think I would recommend this anymore.
This technique is very specific and not for dynamic close combat, but sometimes it lets you become almost invulnerable.
Okay, I mean,
You can also first bait your opponent to take a shot by showing
This is
only
true.
your side.
however, he wasn't showing only his side. He was showing his upper hull, all right? He could get penned through the upper hull there. Like, he was definitely showing the plate. That's too much of a bait.
Using terrain. If you attack the enemy from behind terrain folds, you can hide your lower glacis or even your entire
And you
hull.
can't shoot them back because you
But
don't
a
have
tank
enough gun
needs good
depression.
gun depression angles to do so. If they're not enough, you can turn a little and try to position your vehicle so the front.
That was terrible. You can actually play more, like you see the slope here, you go more left, and then you can actually keep the tank down and not expose your side. Because the only reason he didn't take damage is because he's playing against the BZ, and the BZ has one of the worst guns ever.
Front of your tank is lowered toward the enemy. If that doesn't help, try to bait them into shooting, then roll out to hit them back. When
Could have played
blocking
that better.
damage, consider your turret position and hull shape. For example, a pike nose provides maximum protection in the upper glacis in this position. When the tank faces the enemy directly,
true.
you only need to
But a 257 is a bad example for anything because the hull really is not that good. But a 257, you want to forget everything this video shows except for spaced armor, because it's just filled with it on the side, and you want to peek as badly as possible. Bait them into shooting the side where they're going to bounce. I think that's not the greatest example to use as a tank.
turn it if the enemy is aiming at your lower glacis. Tanks with rear turret placement are usually well suited for side scraping, but perform worse on uneven ground.
One, the aim is terrible. Second of all, I mean, against this kind of tank in M103, after the shot, you want to lift your gun to protect as much of your turret as possible. Sure, you can still pen the flat surfaces, but the roof is an entire pen, so...
Some vehicles have good armor in the lower glacis, which allows them not only to side scrape, but also block damage with their hull front at an angle. We mentioned baiting for a shot a few times. You can do this.
Baiting for a shot is when your teammate's on the corner, you accidentally lag, push him around the corner, he takes 1k damage, you write sorry, then you pull around the corner and you blast him, and you repeat this process until you run out of teammates or you get banned for 3 days. One of the two.
With any part of your tank that the enemy can't penetrate. It can even be your rear, as long as it's at a sharp angle. These tactics will let you safely fire.
You saw the IS-7 position? That's actually not a good IS-7 position, because with most tanks, and IS-7 is one of those, once you start doing this on a slope, the engine deck at the back is fully pennable. The roof is fully pennable as well. It's one of the things where you don't want to do this with, because of how much it actually exposes pennable area Let's not note something. That position you don't really want to play that way. Never reverse up on the slope.
At an unloaded enemy. Brawl is a situation when two tanks are at fist-fighting distance from each other. In the brawl, you will often not be able to depress your gun toward the enemy's lower glacis.
When you are brawling with a 60 TP that can barely hit your cupola properly, and most likely is going to be shooting heat to do so, you want to block his gun. Every time that he's reloaded, you block his gun, because when he's reloading, you give him 2 shots in the time anyways. So whenever he has a shot, you want to shield or try and shield your cupola. Get him to bounce, and then in face hug, you kill him, because you can just pen him indeed through the driver's hatch or anywhere else on the upper hull, basically.
So it's important to hit other weak spots such as cupolas, the turret ring, driver's
Okay, he is blocking.
and so on.
Okay,
Also,
never mind.
Prevent the enemy from hitting yours. You can also block damage without any cover. To do so, players usually angle their vehicle to increase its front armor.
That's a good
At
position.
The same time,
Yeah, sure.
It's useful to dance with your hull, left and
Dance
right,
with your hull.
constantly changing the effective armor. Don't angle it too much.
Sure, but like this angle was pretty bad because the whole side was already exposed. Like this plate, it was better further back and baiting just on the upper
or
hull.
the enemy will penetrate the side, or worse, the wheel. This way, you'll not only take damage, but also be immobilized. So sometimes it's better to roll at the enemy head on. When your tank is stationary, it's vulnerable, and if your track is destroyed in a crossfire, it's best to use a repair kit. Sometimes
Really?
it's worth saving, since it repairs other modules such as the engine, fuel tanks, and ammo rack. Now let's talk about how to increase your chances of survival before battle.
Now I'm
Of all
curious.
the crew perks,
Yes.
repairs is the most useful for survival.
True.
It's one of the most important perks for all tanks,
again
except
true.
for SPGs and sniper TDs.
And you see the sniper TD part is a lie, alright? You can be unspotted for however long you want to be unspotted. The moment you get spotted and you get tracked and you sit there for 13 seconds repairing, you are going to die, whether you have 50% camo or not. That is a mistake, IMO, but whatever.
With repairs, your destroyed track will be fixed much quicker, letting you find cover even when the repair kit is cooling down. Another important perk is firefighting. It will come in handy if you play with a food consumable instead of a fire extinguisher.
Sure, I agree.
A safe stove
Especially since it's only on one crew member now. I agree. Safe storage, also fine.
perk will help tanks that often lose their hats.
Very true.
Other secondary
Soviet
perks
tanks.
increase the chance of
Yeah,
fire,
sure.
improve the dispersion of a damage
Although BIA is IMO the second skill, not any of these. Like you go BIA as second and then you start training like situational skills.
gun, allow the commander to replace injured crew members, and so on.
And this is mentor now, not jack of all trades. Very early to train mentor, especially with a reusable medkit. I think this is a mistake again.
They can also be trained, but not first. There's
Ah,
also equipment that improves survival. The most useful piece is improved hardening.
very true.
It's pretty much a must-have for heavy tanks
Very
and assault
true.
TDs, and can sometimes be useful for medium tanks too.
I think more than sometimes, there's a lot of medium tanks that don't snipe, that actually brawl. Having extra track protection is very nice. The fact that your track gets repaired to full HP after it gets knocked off is again very nice, because it takes another 2 shots to track you.
Improved hardening increases a vehicle's HP and, equally importantly, boosts track's HP. With this equipment, the enemy will have to fire at
Very
your
important.
rollers 2 or even 3 times
Yes.
to immobilize your vehicle.
Very important.
Vehicles that are prone to engine, fuel tank,
What? Is that a mouse with HP, fence, and rammer? On Malin? No, dude, that's crazy. Not mounting turbo on a mouse is sacrilegion. Dude, that's crazy.
tank or ammo rack
That's
damage
actually
can be
great.
equipped with
What? Config? No, this is why we have experimental HP, guys. I'm sorry. If you have one of those tanks, you just use experimental HP. You get the benefits or the secondaries from config already anyways. And you still get a hardening boost. Plus, you still get some track protection. You can then take the first field mod to boost that track protection. So a lot of alpha guns still need 2 shots to track you. But using config is a waste of an equipment slot.
improved configuration. It gives a number of useful bonuses, including higher internal module durability. Spall liner can also be useful in certain situations. The
Ball liner is the most useless equipment in the game. Like, don't even say it.
Experimental Survival Improvement Suite combines the bonuses of improved hardening and configuration.
Why didn't we start with this?
We learned how to block damage, trained repairs, and mounted improved hardening. Time to battle. You roll to your position and get caught in the crossfire.
Experimental HP on the
enemy
hood.
attacks from different directions, you'll have trouble blocking damage. Change
That's
your
crazy.
position and hide from all opponents except
This is a good
the one
spot.
you're firing at.
That's a good spot.
You can't survive the crossfire. In another battle, you might be able to block damage perfectly, but an enemy with a high caliber will load HE shells. These shells always cause
Wow.
damage, even when they don't penetrate armor.
106
if an HE
damage.
shell hits a thick armor plate,
70.
it won't cause much damage. But
Wow.
if you try to side scrape with thin sides, it can cause a lot more. Remember that if you can penetrate your opponent in return, you have the upper hand. You'll damage them more with penetrations than they will you with HE shells.
What was that
If
aim?
the enemy has strong armor, don't just stand there and absorb damage. Change your position or wait for a better chance to shoot. This also
Or just
applies
aim
to
and kill him in the
enemy fire
beginning.
from distant bushes or artillery. If you're under fire and can't hit them back, you can change position.
Wow,
and remain
dude.
for some time.
Wow, nice, dude. My man lost like 30% of his HP against artillery. That's very cool, dude. Wow. Wow, Wargaming. That's, dude, that guy had a good game. Please do send him a survey, dude. Ask him about his worldoftanks experience.
Will be distracted
I
by
bet he
your
had fun.
allies while you
Ah,
continue
298, dude.
firing.
Ah,
You take
balanced.
less damage from artillery.
Very
Remember
balanced.
that it can't reach you everywhere. Pay attention to how much of it there is at the start of the battle. If there are 2 or 3 SPGs against you, it's probably better to use a position.
It's probably better to just like go to the next game, to be honest, at that point, because when you're playing an AMX TD at tier 8 and you're playing against tier 10s, of which this one basically takes most of your HP in one shot, and these two fire so quickly that it kills your will to live during the battle, maybe it's this time to go to the next one.
Covered from their fire, or just accept the fact that sometimes you can't avoid artillery damage. Finally, the most important question: do you always need to try to block damage?
When you're playing for stupid missions, then yes, the goal is to block as much damage as possible while gaming, because you have these beautiful missions like Heavy Tank 12, block 2 times of your HP, which is a very cool mission, making sure that you sit there in the open and expose yourself the whole time, because taking damage is the way to go, boys. You should always try and block damage. You know, it's better than just to roll behind the corner when it's safe.
No. In addition to armor,
wait,
the
no?
vehicle has a
That's
pool of
crazy.
hit points that you need to trade.
Need to
There's
trade.
nothing wrong with taking a hit if it means you get to finish off an opponent.
True. That's
or taking
true.
400 HP of damage and dishing
400,
out 750 in
it's
return.
less than
You
750.
can
True.
intentionally receive damage to unload the opponent and give your allies a chance to destroy them. Or
Playing
you can
for the
cover
team,
an
dude.
ally with your vehicle to let them survive. All in
Wow,
all, no
shield.
matter how reliable your side scraping or hull down position is, you don't
That's
always
crazy.
need to do it until the end of battle. There comes a time in almost every battle when you need to forget about blocking damage and just roll forward. That's it for today. Show this video to your friends who are still side scraping at a straight angle. Next time, we'll talk
Why is he
about the
blue?
view range system. See you soon.
Not the worst video. Not the worst video, not the best one either. There's some stuff there that I wouldn't recommend ever, but not too bad. Minus the artillery part, that was a bit questionable though. I would thumbs down just for that one. Anyways, I hope you guys loved your React content. I will see you guys all for the very next one. Thank you for watching. See you guys soon. Peace. Ciao, ciao.